This is Michaela McLean, and you're listening to Beauty by Design. Hey everyone, welcome back. Thank you for being here again. It's time to talk about our next gate, gate 19. But before we get into it, I just want to let you know if you would like a super easy way to navigate the podcast, find the exact gate you are looking for at the exact moment you are looking for it, I have a PDF that has all of that information plus keywords for every single one of the 64 gates. How do you get your hands on one of those? Leave the podcast a 5-star rating and review on Apple Podcast. Send me a screenshot to my email, energeticesthetics@icloud.com. That is also in the show notes. That's simple, and I'll send you over a PDF with all the details. And that way you can find what you're looking for when you're trying to find it, which is fantastic. Yeah. And of course, the usual, hit my website, michellamclean.com for free charts, free guide, $11 masterclass, yoga nidras, all the good things, everything that you can need, and more things coming all the time. I'm working on a little something right now, an offering, playing with some things, a different way of working with people and having access to me that is one-on-one, but it's not necessarily face-to-face. So we'll see how that goes. I'm kind of excited about it. I'm working on really big projects in the background, and I just need something to be flexible with my time, my kids, everything else that's going on. So yeah, stay tuned on that. Um, if you're not following me on Instagram already, at Michaela McLean, because over there I share all the ways that you can work with this energy through frequencies, crystals, essential oils, actual practices, things like that, that I don't share on the podcast. And I think that's really important. That's the embodiment piece of things. It's always pinned to the top of my post. So go check it out if, like I said, if you're not following me already, and learn how to use it, learn how to integrate all of this into your everyday life so it's actually helpful. Okay, let's go ahead and get on the episode. Of course, my little disclaimer, don't try to understand this at the mental level. The sound current, the energy, the frequency of beauty sink deep into your cells like good skincare. You're going to absorb what you need to know when you need to know it. So just chill. All right. The sun, we are in Aquarius season. So the sun's in Aquarius. We're moving into human design gate 19, which is located in the root center, and it's part of the tribal ego circuitry. Tribal energy is squad goals, the hippie commune, the girl gang, community over competition. This is seeking security. This is what tribal energy wants. And the keynote here is support. It's providing support for others. And in the case of 19, this is definitely about spiritual support versus material support. Okay, so the root, starting with the center itself, the root is both a pressure and a motor center. It pushes us to do and provides the adrenaline to carry out the action. Energy enters the root, then moves around the body graph to the awareness centers. And in the case of gate 19, it is pushing upward, it's moving up toward the emotional solar plexus, which is fueling the emotions and emotional awareness. So the solar plexus, right? So we're moving up there, is emotional nervousness. The solar plexus is the nervous system. Okay. Gate 19 is known as approach. It's the gate of wanting, and it is the pressure to be sensitive to basic needs. As part of the tribal circuitry, it's about sensitivity and awareness to the needs of others, especially your close group, your tribe, both mundane and spiritual. So, gate 19 is the quintessential textbook HSP, the highly sensitive person. This is the feeler and the healer archetype. The low expression of 19 can show up as being a victim of feelings, yours and other people's, oftentimes unknowingly, feeling responsible for other people's emotions or their pain, a lack of healthy boundaries, sensing what others need before they do, and then trying to provide it to them without taking care of yourself first. The old saying, you can't fill from an empty cup. It's that thing. This is hypersensitivity to everything, which can be utterly crippling and being overwhelmed by all of it. Also, on the low expression is codependency. It wants to be wanted, it needs to be needed, it desires to belong. It can create anxiety around its own needs not being met or frankly just being forgotten about. I always think of, the Cheap Trick song, I want you to want me, it's like I call this affectionately doormat energy. It takes everything super personal, so easily hurt. Um, yeah. Did I mention this is my South Node? I have this twice in my chart. The high expression, though, of 19, sensitivity is a true superpower. If you have 19, it is your superpower. There is a hyper awareness to whether or not things feel right in the skate. Being tuned in what others need so deeply that they can reach their highest potential. So again, kind of going back, I know in gate 54, if you folded the chart in half, these guys are mirror images of each other, 54 and 19. And in 54, I reference Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and it applies again here. This side of it extends to spirit, right? And this feels very accurate for me, providing for the spiritual needs of my community, my tribe. The spiritual element that is missing, like people need something to believe in. This is beyond the material of like, all right, we got to hustle, we got to, be in business and all that. It's like, well, what do we have? What do we have nourishing ourselves spiritually? Like I'm all about it. The group needs something to believe in. They need something to provide hope, something to help them unite and unify. A person with 19 is here to identify what is missing and apply the pressure to get those needs tended to. The extreme sensitivity of gate 19 can also show up on many levels, from physical sensitivity, like sensitive to touch, the feel of fabrics, the taste, the texture of food, having very sensitive and reactive skin, emotional sensitivity to even the slightest changes to the vibe and the environment. Like 19, if you have 19, it does not do well in emotionally volatile situations. Again, I have 19 twice as my South Node, as well as feeling cognition, which, by the way, get your chart from my website and you'll get all the extras, the deeper stuff. And I can attest. I can attest to all of the above, right? I have stories. My mom has stories from the time I was teeny tiny of just off the chart sensitivity from a physical standpoint, but then also like an emotional and a spiritual standpoint. And I have very sensitive and very reactive skin. It's just the whole thing's textbook. If you have 19, it sensitizes the entire chart. It amplifies all of the white space a person may have. So, using myself as an example, somebody like me, I have one channel, meaning two centers defined, but the whole channel is red. So I'm not even consciously like aware of it. I am now, but I didn't used to be. So an unconscious channel and 7 centers that are white, it's like that's going to be crazy sensitive, right? I always joke, I'm like reading the room 24/7. Can just like feel, the slightest the slightest like change or disturbance or whatever. So if you also have 19, look at your chart, look at the white centers where you also will really take things on, the places that you're more vulnerable and permeable, and figure out how to use that as a gift, not a curse. Anyway, back to the needs thing. On a, again, personal note, I always relate my history of clinical depression to my Pisces sun in gate 36, but um, I've read something before that said depression is a pervasive state of hopelessness and chronic unmet needs, which makes me think of gate 19, like that, and that slow expression. Are my needs ever going to be met? Like I'm over here providing spiritual sustenance for other people, and oh, here's what you need, and take, and and then you're like, but is anybody going to take care of me ever? Anyway, just yeah, there's a lot going on there, but on that sort of like depression front as well, like I've had various therapists in my life, and there was one I really liked her. She had me come to a group thing. Oh, I don't do groups. 19, we'll get into this. No, 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 no. Of all these people, these grown women, I still feel like, oh, it's funny, where you're like, you can be an adult. I don't know. I'm sure other people feel like this, where you still feel like the kid or like a little child or something. And all these people are sharing these like deeply emotional stories. Not a single tear is being shed. I, on the other hand, am sitting there listening to all these people, bawling my eyes out, feeling their pain. I haven't even, I didn't, I couldn't. I get in those situations, I can't even speak out loud, cannot use my voice, but I'm the one person. And I've said this in other places where I'm like, I'm embarrassed at my sensitivity at different times just because it's like so overwhelming. And I remember after telling her, this has been quite a few years ago, uh, she was like, "Oh no." Like, I was like, "I'm so embarrassed." She was, "No, no, no. Everybody just loved it." I'm like, "Wait, what?" I think it's like in a situation like that, it was not until later that I realized I was like, I am able to tap into my sensitivity and like cry for these people. Like they weren't able to be that sensitive and that vulnerable in that situation. And I'm not going to say I didn't have any problem with it because clearly it's a little bit embarrassing in front of complete strangers. But like me as a physical vessel have no problem doing it. Like I have no control over it. It's like I hear it and I'm just like, oh, your pain is my pain. Anyway, oh God, if you have 19 too, would love to hear from you. What is your experience with this? Because damn, I feel you. Um, okay, and the gene keys, the shadow of this one is codependence, and the gift is sensitivity. The city is sacrifice. So basically, Richard Rudd gets into the fact of like 19 people, they are the gifted healers, the therapists. They have this deep connection with just sentient life like animals. There's the gift of touch. The gift of sensitivity is about being highly attuned to the needs of others, but you have to become independent first. So that's interesting. So you're going from that codependency to realizing like, no, I am separate and yet we're all the same, right? He just says like essentially these people are literally the barometer of their environments, reading the needs of everything and everyone. He references synesthesia heavily in the 19th gift. It's considered a byproduct activated through increased sensitivity to your sensory environment. And it's a really wild way to feel into the world around you, like feeling, sensing, hearing, seeing the constant fluctuation of energy or moods in people, group dynamics, so on and so forth, in a way that most people do not. They don't. I'm old enough to know that now. Like I said, like referencing that sort of women's group thing. Oh, I don't do groups. Again, I'm just like, this is, I just know. But most people don't feel to that degree, and they certainly don't let themselves like go there. So that's 19 for you. It's how I sometimes reference on here about being the cosmic weather girl. It's like I can not even be around or in contact with people and still sense what's going on. It's wild. Richard Rudd says that people with the 19th gift are often the shamans because of this extreme level of sensitivity and natural ability to access these other more magical realms. They are the interpreters of energy. 19 understands healing. They know how to approach, there's the I Ching name approach. They know how to approach helping and healing others in the right way, waiting for others to seek them out, which makes sense because moving on to notes, it's a part of a emotionally projected channel. So projector rules apply, seen, recognized, invited. So that would be sensing what other people need, but not rushing, not trying to provide it for them unless it's actually requested from you as a 19 person. So in this case, it's like for myself, the best thing I can do here is make myself visible and available, right? This is my South Node. It's a gift that I am naturally masterful at. That is your South Node. I'm not, I'm like, that's not just me. It's like whatever your South Node is. So it's like the thing that you just come into this life, like, I'm naturally good at this. I don't have to try. This is just something I carry with me, but I can't force it on other people. Just this morning, I was in seeing at one of my old offices and seeing one of my closest friends, which funnily enough has the partner to this, I'm thinking now. And we were talking about some things, new things that they're going to do and get. And she's like, oh my God, you were the one years ago when I was still working there. She's like, you were the one saying that we needed this. we needed to move in this direction. I was talking about the scientifically supported aspects of like energy and energy work and stuff. It's like it's not in the out there realm anymore. And it's just fascinating, right? How people are starting to catch up. So it can be a bit frustrating, to be like, I have always seen and sensed and noticed like what is needed here for healing, right? 19. Only to, you know what I mean? It's like not everybody's like ready to adopt that. So it's just like, hey, you can't force it on people. You just have to wait. Like I said, this is part of an emotional wave. This is the ratchet wave. Physical touch here, so important. And when I say ratchet, it means like it builds on itself, like little things happen and that emotional, basically tension intensity builds up and needs to be released. So that's why physical touch is so important with this. For myself, I love massages. They're my favorite thing in the whole wide world. I fall asleep immediately. Same thing with like Reiki. It doesn't matter. It's like that ability to be touched and have an emotional release is that's what's happening. It's like it's a physical thing to have an emotional reaction. And that emotional release has to do with the tribe. So, what's going on in your life, what's going on in your inner circle, being on a massage table, and not even feeling emotional. I was talking about this recently, a few different places, just being like, oh, yeah, okay, now we're crying. And I'm like, I'm not even emotional. I'm not even needing to cry about anything. But apparently, like, yeah, I need to have the tears come out. Like there's just literally like a release physically that has to happen. And I think, again, in my own case, I have an undefined emotional center. So I'm taking on feeling other people's feelings very deeply. And then I need to rinse it out, wring it out. So I'm like, look at all the sponges in your own chart that need the rinse and the wringing. They need to go through the wash. And sometimes that's where that's the crying piece, or maybe it's something else, but there is some sort of an emotional release. Again, try to see all that as a blessing, not a curse. I'm trying to lean into it harder now than I used to. I was saying again recently, like on my mat every day and intentionally doing heart opening things and just being like, tears are just leaking out of my eyes. They're streaming down my face, but I'm not actually sad about anything. It's just you're picking everything up from everybody. Gotta get it out. 19 definitely can feel responsible for other people's feelings. I've definitely had things in my own life where I feel and I've said this, there's been family things that have happened like pretty dramatic. And I'm like, it might as well be happening to me. Like that's how intensely identifying with it. So goes back to that codependency thing, right? The gene keys, like Richard Rudd saying, you need to know where you end and others begin and being aware of that. Like you can feel with them and you definitely empathize, but there needs to be some ability. Like, how is the healer supposed to help heal when they're just like it's like they're having just as hard a time as the person who's actually going through it? Ooh. This one is considered clairsentient, but I'm like, it's really all the dang clairs. All the things are again hyped up and hypersensitive. 19 is considered the mark of a healer. A feeler and a healer, it's driven to healing professions specifically. I know I certainly was. I mentioned this is my South Node from when I was tiny. I actually found my little doctor's kit the other day and got really emotional about it. I wanted to be a doctor from like the time I could talk. I have Aquarius South Node, sixth house, right? Mark of a healer. Gate 25, undefined spleen. Those are more marks of this. And it was just so intense. It was so intense. And it still is in a different way. So 19, do you feel that as well? My friends, people that I know that have 19, absolutely, they fall in that like healer category for sure. If you have 19, energetic hygiene practices are essential. Again, the beginning of the emotional solar plexus cleanse. The sun, this is the beginning of it, is like going through these gates in the ESP. So we're getting into that very emotional time, Aquarius, Pisces territory, salt baths, noise canceling headphones, time in nature, forest bathing. I was just listening to Huberman, all the outdoor time So important. So whatever it is that you need, selenite, things that make you feel clean and clear, be practicing those, especially if you are a 19 person. Like you need to have practices. Again, this is where I post things on Instagram and I talk about bringing certain centers into homeostasis. Like in this case, the root. This is where this is stemming from. Like, how do I get back in balance when interacting with other people, situations, what have you, makes me feel discombobulated emotionally? We got to bring it back on track. If you're a 19 person, very important to care for yourself first so that you can be helpful and healing to others. Again, laughing because I'm like, yeah. And when I was still in the treatment room, I would cry with my patients. They would be telling me like these deeply emotional stories, as you can imagine. I mean, just life happens to everyone. And I'd be like, oh my God, here I'm like trying to microneedle somebody. I remember this one very clearly, microneedling someone and being like, I can't cry on them, but I am crying right along with them because they are telling me something that is just so intense. Ooh, getting choked up just thinking about that. This has been years ago, but I would do it like far too often and just, yeah, need to find those ways of like, I don't know. I think it's like being healthy with it, not taking it on as your own, which again leads me to my next point. You need to develop better boundaries, learning how to manage your empathy. One of my big things was the realization of I can feel along with people and I'm going to cry. Like it's just going to happen. There's no way around it. But I don't need to put it in like my little emotional backpack and carry it with me now forever and ever like it belongs to me. It's more like, hey, I'm going to feel right along with you. I'm going to empathize, but you know, like I think about that, I'm like, how do therapists do their jobs? God. So thinking about if you're a 19 person, who or what are you sensitive to? Whose feelings are these? Like, whose stuff am I feeling? I know, when I used to be in the treatment room, I would go into work. I'm like, I clearly know where I picked this up. But you just think about that if you're like, I'm feeling off, like, where? How are you taking other people in? Um, what are you feeling? Again, this is why to look to those white centers if you have 19, because you may be taking in undefined ajna, other people's thoughts or other people's motivations, or, if it's like the heart center or other people's feelings, emotional feelings, if it's the solar plexus. I mean, like there's so many places obviously to look in the chart and kind of be a detective for yourself. So seeing where this is happening, what are you sensitive to? The wave that this is, it's a tribal wave. It's the tribal need. So again, physical touch, sensitivity to needs. As I said, it ratchets up. It's a gradual building of emotions until it explodes. So again, the solution here is touch. And that's where I'm like, if you feel like you're getting worked up, and you're like, I can feel it building, I'm going to need a release. It's like, get a massage ASAP, get some sort of form of physical touch. Yeah, and, like, some of this stuff, I'm like, "Oh, this is the basis of a class that I wanna teach," specifically about sensitivity and intuition and stuff, but there's a lot going on there. There's a lot to investigate and find in your chart that's so cool. It explains so much. And then 19, very sensitive to the harsh edges of reality, to cruelty. I mentioned, like, 19 can have a bit of an issue, especially if there's an undefined solar plexus there as well. Not Crowds are not the thing. Crowds ain't it. I'm like, that's definitely my thing. And I laugh because we recently had Gate 61 and I call it my Debbie downloads. I'm like, 19 is sensitive Sally. That's her name. So yeah, just so much stuff like here again, tribal being tactile. It's just about that closeness. Um, these people, family, the tribe, whether it really is the family or like a chosen family, but it is the business and the work of these people with this specific circuitry. This is also considered a flirtatious gate, almost like flirting with others, like, I have what you need, I have the healing that you need. And this is coming from the root. So the root center, it needs safety and security. And again, this is about being family. This is an emotional wave, so it means it needs to be weighted out over time. And I think of like my husband and I, we knew each other for 5 years before getting married. We were together for 8 years before we had our first child. We were married for 8 years. So we had already been together for 5 years prior to that. Security over the long haul is so important for the emotional wave. Not just if I don't have an emotional wave technically, but I have lots of gates that are part of emotional waves. And so this one it being about family, so important. So making sure like if you have this, like whoever your person is, they are in it for the long haul with you. They are your ride or die. It's commitment. Okay, so programming partner, meaning if the sun is in Aquarius in gate 19, the earth is automatically opposite in Leo gate 33. My north node. So I have the opposition. 33 is known as retreat. It's the gate of privacy, and this is an active withdrawal and the transformation of a weak position into a strength. This is a throat gate, so it has a voice. This is I remember. This is one of the three gates of aloneness in human design, the other two being 12 and 40. They all need significant alone time, but for very different reasons. 33 is the moment of silence, taking a beat, that comes at the end of every cycle of experience. 33 absorbs so much. And so it requires a lot of alone time to process, to remember events, to, kind of recount what has happened, review information, lessons, memories, the stories it's collected. 33 is always reflecting and digesting. So that quiet time is just, like I said, it's just so necessary to process everything that's been learned or witnessed so that it can then be spun into wisdom that will eventually be shared with others. It's collective circuitry. It needs to mature over time. It has many, many cycles of life that it needs to go through. The wisdom deepens constantly. I think of like that spiral aspect. It could be also, it can also get caught in cycles, forgetting where it's been, what it's experienced before, and then looping on the same unhelpful experiences or behavior patterns. It can also have a tendency to just retreat entirely, like just hiding away from the world. And yeah, which again, I relate to that a lot. Just there's times where I'm like, nope, we're just gonna retreat completely. If you're not in my immediate family, like that's about it. um, high expression with 33 is about turning the active retreat into a strength. It's like knowing when to pull back, pull away, regenerate through silence, space, meditation, nature, self-care. Because then when it's time to like, oh, okay, I'm gonna come back out of the cave. I'm coming back out of retreat, like you've up leveled. This is about processing and finding the wisdom, the hidden meaning, connecting all the dots behind everything and sharing it with others. So I laugh because I'm like, yeah, I'm like, this is writers going away to write their book. I'm like, this is so literal right now. Blank paper, just thoughts, getting it out, you know. I always say that if you're a 33 person, I think this is why I'm so obsessed with journaling. And I encourage you, if you are a 33 person, just recount what has been happening. I've always got to write down the sweet things like my kids said, or if they said something funny or whatever, the downloads, all that stuff. Otherwise, it's very forgetful. Um, but yeah, 33 is extremely private, even though it's Leo and it's throat, it's like, it's just super, super, super private. And again, using that as a strength, that's what I think is so cool. For me, it's like 12th house, like spiritual domain. And it's like, it is hidden away from the rest of the world. And that's okay. I'm like, the idea of retreat is very special to me. And I love it. It's like, that's not a bad thing, especially in a world like this where it's like everybody's got to be out and it's so yang, like 24/7. Like, no, it's not right for everyone, not right for all of us all the time. You need that private time to process. The founder of human design was like, this is like a super spiritual gate. It's like being the witness to life, being the passenger in the vehicle. Just relax, enjoy the ride, don't get too attached to the outcome. And then the gate that completes this channel is Aquarius gate 49, forming the channel of synthesis. 49 is known as revolution. It's the gate of principles. It's the gate of rejection. The fear of nature, aka God, a wave that either accepts or rejects principles based on the needs of the tribe. This one carries a nervousness about rejection, unpredictability, and consequences, because we're now in the emotional solar plexus. So fears and anxieties, it's an awareness center. This gate has very high standards and serious values. I always say boundaries with a capital B, having strong principles, all caps. Its biggest concern is making sure the tribe's needs are met, especially when it comes to food or necessities, and is ready to go to war, figuratively, but also literally, if those basics are denied. It's about following and enforcing the rules of the tribe. The low expression of 49 is being emotionally reactionary. It can show up as being quick to reject those who are not in total alignment with their principles and needs. Very much it's my way or the highway. It can be fearful of being rejected as well. Like historically, if you are tossed out of the tribe, you don't survive. It is a gatekeeper. It's who's in, who's out, who's part of the tribe or the club or the group, the circle, the tribe, whatever. It's an energy that has an expectation to be obeyed. It is very much the yang side of this channel where like to the yin side of the 19, that energy of these two halves. Like I said, it just you're gonna listen to me, you're gonna obey me. Unlike 19, its channel partner that is just sensitive, period. 49 is sensitive to those who are in their circle and on their frequency. It doesn't really extend to everyone. Otherwise, it can actually be quite an insensitive gate. It's just for me and my people. And it's a really low expression. It can lean toward being physically reactive in a negative way, like actually physically striking out at someone. 49 can, that reactionary element is like throwing gasoline on the fire, getting their tribe, their people all riled up, stirring things up, but not being around to support or guide it. What's going on again is projected energy. It's like this is 49 is revolution. Being revolutionary is not a part-time job. But the high expression of this one is it's the archetype of the revolutionary. There it is, right? It's an activist. It can show up as someone who is willing to fight for their group, for social justice and reform, who cares about the big picture and everyone involved. It carries the desire to create real actionable change, desire for equality. It's this call to devote yourself to a cause that is deeply connected to your tribe. 49 is also nicknamed the gate of no or the divorce gate. This energy is not about to allow itself to be walked all over. Do not do a 49 wrong because they will leave in a heartbeat and they will never look back. When used consciously, it can be such an amazing demonstration of strong boundaries for the rest of us, especially sensitive Sally over here with the 19 only. The change it's willing to fight for needs to take place over time because this is part of an emotional wave, right? So it's not meant to be in the heat of the moment, which is where that shadow side of reaction comes into play, is that's not felt out over time and clarity derived from it. It's just like, boom, I'm just reacting to something that's upsetting me. Okay, so when the two come together, when 19 and 49, what do we got? We got the sensitivity of the root, the emotions of the solar plexus coming together. This is creating the channel of synthesis, also known as a design of sensitivity. It's about finding a healthy balance between your needs and the needs of others, especially in a familial setting. So this channel is about being sensitive to your place in the tribe, wanting to both give and to be supported. Tribal energy is tit for tat. It's all about bargains. You scratch my back, I'll scratch yours. These are people who will work hard at relationships, specifically family bonds, but the relationships need to be entered into correctly and be given time for clarity. Building a healthy relationship occurs over time. So it really, again, goes back to what I was saying about like my husband and I like building this really strong relationship over a very long period of time. I was 19 when I met him. I'm this coming birthday, I'm going to be 43, like, ooh, um, it's even important for people with this channel or mate, creating this channel together as an electromagnetic to eat meals together as a family, spend quality time together as a family. My husband, myself, our kids, we are like crazy close. We are like a little 4-person unit. Again, this mirrors the channel of transformation on the other side of the chart, right? So this is a person who is tending to the spirituality of the tribe, the goal of building a brighter future, not for itself, but for its whole crew. And this is one of the mystical channels in the chart. The mystical process actually begins with gate 19. And it's about awakening to something higher, to God, the universe, the divine. It's an evolution of our human consciousness. So again, it's kind of like think about Maslow's hierarchy of needs. If my basic needs, my food, my shelter, my safety is met, it's like as we go up, we're moving up where we need something to believe in. We want to self-actualize. Interestingly, so if you make this channel in a connection chart in an electromagnetic situation, okay, so my case, I have 19. I have people in my life who have the 49. It's one you want to watch. Okay. I will just say 49 is a tough one for me. I have various people in my life with it. And it's just like, wow, a steel firewall, like boom, comes down. They can be ready to excommunicate you at the drop of a hat. It's been my experience, only to later realize maybe it was just all a misunderstanding or something like that. But that little 19, it's like, oh, the damage is done. 19 is so sensitive. It's like it's been crushed. 49 is going to react. That's the thing. And the 19, it's going to let things slide for too long. Whereas the 49, nothing is getting past the fortress. So again, if you see that pairing in your chart with somebody else, you each have one half of it. It's like you really just want to pay attention to that because you can be attached to the hip until you're not, till some perceived slight happens. I don't really talk a ton about relationship stuff because it's like it's not my necessarily specific area of interest, I guess. I'm very much about like make yourself feel good, make yourself feel better. But it is there are a couple of channels in the chart where it's like, yeah, you just want to know what's happening with yourself and other people there. Again, food is a major theme with this. I already mentioned about eating meals together, but this is very much about having the basic needs provided for. I know for myself at various times, just seeing things in your life. I grew up in the 80s, like the kids in Africa, Flint, Michigan, the water, and just being like crying so much over that because it's like water people in our own country. Like what? I'm the person that's like donates to all the animal shelters on a constant recurring basis. Hilarious. Like, I used to volunteer. Like, remember the first time I ever went in, all I did was cry, bawled my eyes out, and the director, volunteering at the local shelter, she's like, "Oh, maybe we'll have you do." And they like gave me a different job that was more like off-site and stuff. And I was like, yeah, that's good. Like, I want to contribute. Like, this matters to me so much. But oh my God, I will just be a blubbering mess and no help, right? No help to anybody or these poor animals. It's like, no, give me a different job. Like this part is not for me. So funny. Astrologically, this would be a loose Aquarius conjunction aspect. So we have the 19 and the 49, both Aquarian gates. And this is happening in the fourth quarter of the wheel, purpose fulfilled through transformation. This is the final gate of the fourth quarter. So therefore, kind of the final gate of that element of the wheel. It's transforming for 2027, for the future, being able to sense and empathically feel other sentient beings. When 19 reaches up, I said it goes up to the solar plexus. When the solar plexus is going through a change, we're moving into in the future what's going to be spirit awareness, really being able to understand and feel into everybody and be able to communicate without verbally communicating. So 19 is like the precursor to that. Everything I said about being able to sense and notice and feel energy and all of this, it's like, well, down the road, that's going to be something that all children will be born with in the future. Anyway, I was just laughing. Like my Aquarius South Node is futuristically seeing what others need to help them, hold space for other people's healing, knowing what they need before they know they need it. That's how I feel about everything that I am secretly, my 33 is keeping it secret, private, but that I'm working on to bring into this world when the time is right. But it's all, I don't know. The downloads have been big lately that it's all based on healing and just needing to get that out there for people, how important it all is. All right, there we have it. Do you have 19 in your chart? Look down at the root. It's going to be on the right-hand side, aiming up toward the solar plexus. If it's colored in black, red, or red and black, you have it in your chart. Mine is red and black. Maybe you don't have it. Look to the other side. Maybe you have the 49. If that's colored in, you're going to get the whole channel for approximately 6 days, and maybe you don't have any part of it at all. That's fine too. You're absolutely going to feel it in the transits. You're going to experience it through other people. Look at other people's charts in your life. Who do you know that's like super sensitive? Do they have 19? This might answer a lot of questions or a lot of, like give some answers there. Just so fascinating, just again, to like observe the people in your life. I'm a 4-1. I'm always in people observation mode. So, and this I'm reading it all the time. Remember to follow me over on Instagram at Michaela McLean, where I post, again, actual tangible ways to utilize this energy from the crystals, the oils, the frequency, the practices, all the things to make this like real and bring it into your life and help you come into homeostasis and heal. Of course, my website, MichaelaMcLean.com, we've got the free charts, the free guide, the classes, the yoga nidras, all the good stuff, more things coming. And if you want that guide to the gates, make sure that you leave the podcast 5-star rating and review. Email me a screenshot. Again, that will be in the show notes where to send it to. And I'll get you a guide to all 64 gates and their corresponding episodes with little keynotes, all that good stuff. Okay, that's it. I'll be back soon with more. Of course, until next time, have a beautiful day.